Yes, sir. Yeah, check the whole perimeter. The enclosure is secure. Yeah, that's correct. End of my shift. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I hate that guy. Well, hello everybody! Welcome back. My name is MockALove, your friendly neighborhood Dilophosaurus, and some broken pumpkins as well, which is kind of poetic and iconic of the belated Halloween episode. Today we're going to take a tour of one of the most iconic movie cars ever captured on film, the 1995 Jeep Wrangler YJ. Rid me of this thing. Ugh. Freedom. Under the hood of this 1995 YJ Wrangler, we do have the smallest of the engines offered at the time. We do have the 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine pushing out 123 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque. And really, the engine, for the most part, is held by these little hooks and this latch. And it pops up just like so. It's a heavy hood. And there it is, the 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine. It does look quite a bit small in this engine bay. There's quite a lot of space left. And the holy grail of the Jeep YJ Wrangler lineup is considered to be the 4-liter six-cylinder engine. It's also very much known for its reliability. Now, what this engine is a 4-liter six-cylinder with 2 cylinders chopped off. That makes it a 2.5 liter four-cylinder that is just as reliable. Now, it is paired to a 5-speed manual transmission that does have its known weak spots, but at the same time, these Jeeps have proved to be surprisingly reliable for decades now. And this Jeep is a fantastic example of how you build a Jurassic Park Jeep on a budget. This vehicle started off as the base model, the S, 4-cylinder engine, 5-speed manual transmission. As I already mentioned, it had the basic of everything. It was the base trim at the time. The owner had to do quite a few things to make it look the way it does, but it's also known as one of the cheaper, one of the easier movie car conversions that you can do. So please go ahead and do it. Some of the most notable things of this build are the sand beige paint, which I absolutely love. It can look silver and tan at the same time, depending on which lighting hits it in which spot. It is a beautiful color. And this red it's not a sticker, it is actually paint. The Jurassic Park stickers, of course. We also have the front fog lights and the rear fog lights that are not identical to the movie, but are very, very close. Also, one other thing that you cannot help but notice about this car are these 5-spoke red wheels and the tires. Now, the movie cars only came with BF Goodrich KO tires, but they don't make them anymore. And you cannot really get them anywhere, and if you did, you probably would not want to drive on them because they would be way too old and would not be safe to operate on at all. So these Goodrich tires are actually BF Goodrich KO2, which BF Goodrich still makes, and they do look very similar to the movie tires, but they're not quite identical. But they are road legal and safe to drive. Now in the rear, we do have a BF Goodrich KO. One of the older ones, one of the older models. However, it is not fresh. It's been a while, it's old. So it is there purely for aesthetic purposes. Now, if we come to the rear, we will find the aforementioned BF Goodrich KO tire on a 5-spoke red wheel, but also we will find the rear fog lights and this beautiful tan, brown, double coffee, whatever you want to call it, cloth roof that I wish we could take off, but it is almost winter, it is cold, so probably not the best idea. And while we're already in the back, why don't we just go ahead and pop the tailgate open because of how badass and cool it is. And it just feels great. It's not a particularly practical car, and you don't get a lot of trunk storage at all, but it is something. You also always have the rear seats. There it is. One discrepancy that you might notice is this number. There was never a Jurassic Park movie car with the number 89, and the owner decided to give it a personal touch of his own. Now, one aspect that always fascinates me about older vehicles, some modern vehicles still retain this construction as well, is the suspension, the leaf spring suspension. This Jeep has what they call a leaf spring, and that is practically what it is in the layman's terms is sheets of steel stamped together in a dome-like formation and attached to the chassis. As you can very obviously see, they're very visible here, and that gives it the dampening effect, whereas in your modern car, in any regular car that you might know, there's a spring that does the same function, but usually a bit better. But because this is an older model, it still has the leaf springs. Now the interior, which is an even more epic place to be. Everything is, I can't even call it dated, it's just vintage at this point. We have this thin steering wheel with obviously no airbag, quite a big steering wheel too. We have the tach, we have the speedo, we have some basic gauges. We have a whole line of gauges that a lot of modern cars don't show anymore, unfortunately. We have the gas level, we have the coolant temperature, oil pressure, and the battery voltage. We also have a dial that doesn't really show anything. It probably is something in the higher trims. We have very basic controls for the lights and the windshield wipers. We have the heater, we have a fan, we have a cassette radio, of course. One interesting detail about this interior is also these seats. These seats never came with this car. As I've already mentioned, or might have already mentioned, the movie Jeeps from Jurassic Park in 1993, they all were in the Sahara trim. This was the base trim, so the seats were different. So the owner, it took him quite a long time to hunt these down, and as they are getting more and more difficult to find, especially in good condition. But they are actually surprisingly comfortable, and they look great. I love the combination of the tan and this greenish grayish color, and they have the pouches on the back as well. And also the rear seat looks pretty comfortable as well. Everything in this interior is so simple and so exposed. You can see everything, all the bolts, all the rivets, everything is visible. You can literally see everything. One fascinating and kind of crazy detail, when you open the door, you pop the door, and the only thing that stops the door from swinging all the way and hitting the front or wheel arch is this little strap right here that is attached to a metal rod, and that is really the only thing that keeps it from going all the way. And if you take it off, it will go all the way around. Now the speakers, well, there are only two in this car originally, and they were absolutely horrendous according to the owner, and he could barely hear the music on the highway even. So, and I'm sure the quality was absolutely atrocious, so he had to swap them out for a modern system. So now we have four speakers here now. We do have two in the front, and he also installed this soundbar up top here with two speakers, which is really cool. And man, I really love we could drop this top right now. I think driving this Jeep with the top down, oh man, sounds amazing. Sounds like a very good time. Makes me really want a Jeep, to be honest. What I also noticed is that there is really not a way to choose the direction of the vents, because there are no vents that are pointing at the human being, at the person. There are only vents that are pointing at the windshield and at the feet. Now, the cabin is pretty small and it does get very hot very quickly, so that's not really a concern, but it is something to just keep in mind. I just find it fascinating. It is a very bare bones vehicle, and that only highlights that. Now, when it comes to glove compartment, it is small and it really is only big enough for a few replacement fuses and the manual. And we have this little compartment up top here as well. And we have a couple cup holders that are quite small for modern coffee. We also have a compartment in the armrest. And in the rear, there's a decent amount of space for two more people. The windshield wipers are quite weird. They don't really go all the way down. They don't hide out of sight. They just stay in your line of vision at all times, especially if you're looking to make a right turn. They're always there. But you kind of forget about them pretty quickly, and you do get used to these things very easily, especially when the the whole car is one big 1988 quirk. What I also love to point out is the attention to detail in this car and in a lot of the Jurassic Park conversions. We have the vehicle identification number, the tag right here, and we also have a keychain that states authorized engine personnel use only with the engine logo, and on the back we do have the vehicle identification number 89. Really cool. It's really cute. Okay, I think it's time to try the childhood dream. I'm so excited. Right away, you notice how much vibration there is through the steering wheel, through the butt, through the body, how loud it is, how little insulation there is. I love it. I absolutely love it. Obviously, the gear throws are nice and long. We're on a gravel road right now. And you feel the bounciness right away. It's awesome. It's awesome. I cannot feel any sort of confidence through the steering wheel at all. It's very vague. I can't feel anything, and you kind of have to just turn it a bit. Ooh. Yeah, you kind of just have to turn it a bit and see what happens. It's not a cushy ride. Also, as far as the suspension, it's not a cushy ride at all, and it's surprisingly firm and bouncy as well because of the leaf springs, and because the leaf springs are probably on the older side as well, obviously. But yeah, it's not a cushy, it's not a comfy daily driver. I would not say that, but it is. It feels very light on its feet. The way it bounces as well, it really tells you like just how light this Jeep is, and the short wheelbase just helps it turn into corners nicely and just rotate around its axis. And when you're hopping, because of how short the wheelbase is, you feel the hop in the front wheel transfer to the rear, and you feel like both wheels are hopping as well. It's definitely on the slower side. It's definitely underpowered, and you would want more power, but at the same time, it doesn't matter as much, really. Really, in a Jeep YJ, obviously you always want more power. More power is always better. 9 out of 10 times more power is better, but in this case, I don't know. I haven't mudded, obviously, this Jeep, and ooh, yeah, this thing will tip. This thing will flip if you let it flip. This thing will flip 100%. It's a box. And it's very tall. It's a scary car to drive at speeds, let me tell you that. It really is. Especially when you get up to like highway speeds, like 80, 90, 100. The soft top is rattling all over the place. You feel all sorts of vibrations. It gets loud. You don't feel, you feel even less confidence in the steering wheel even. But it's so much fun though. There's so much character to it. There's so much drama and adventure going on when we're going 40 kilometers an hour, and I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. I want to go a little faster, but if I don't, it's perfectly fine if I don't. And just seeing the JP89 and seeing the way people react to you, it truly is a special experience. It really is. What a lovely, lovely road this is. Oh, pothole. Woo! Ooh. Okay, on this road, it's surprisingly zippy. You just keep the RPMs a little higher, and because of how short the wheelbase is, it just rotates around its axis beautifully. Well, for a Jeep, of course. We're not expecting Miata level handling here. It's so much fun going 40 to 50 kilometers an hour on a windy road in a Jeep because you don't feel safe. You never feel safe in a Jeep YJ. It's never a thing. Safety is just not one of your priorities in this car. It rolls and it bounces, it hops and leaps all over the place. It's tall. You always feel like you're halfway into flipping. You're like one wheel in the air, it feels like half the times. And it's slow, and the steering, you barely feel the steering. But it's so much fun because it's just an experience. You're going slowly, and it's not performing the way you would want a car to perform. But it's such an experience, and you feel like, I genuinely feel like I am a character from Jurassic Park right now. It is so cool, especially in these foresty roads. Now, we don't have palm trees here in southern Ontario, but we do have some beautiful fall forests here and there. And I absolutely love the Jeep YJ. I would love to try mudding. I would love to take it mudding. I really would. But I'm not gonna do that today. I don't feel comfortable, nor did the owner sign off on me going off into some mud when I don't even feel comfortable doing that myself. I've never mudded myself, being completely honest. And I've never owned a vehicle that could mud either. But I would love to try that. And honestly, after driving this YJ and after getting familiar with this YJ, I have started going through Auto Trader and looking for Jeep's YJs for myself. YJs or TJs for myself. Honestly, it is such a happy car, this YJ. And I think we need to protect YJs at all costs because it's getting harder and harder. It's getting harder and harder to find one in any sort of decent condition. They rot, they rust out, especially in Canada, right? And if you're mudding a vehicle, it's so difficult to keep the moisture out and keep it relatively rust-free. But if you find a clean YJ for reasonable money, if you're wondering if you should get it, you probably should. And it's so important to keep these alive, man. There's few and far between at this point, and it's such a happy little time capsule into the yesteryear. It's such a happy little car from the 80s, from an era where people used to smoke inside and on airplanes, I think, right? Did they used to smoke on airplanes in the 80s? Or was it way before the 80s and then by the 80s it was all done? Well, you let me know in the comments. Now that we're going a bit faster, here goes the soft top. Wop, 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 wop. This has honestly been a dream come true for me. And I cannot be appreciative enough of the owner letting me drive this beautiful thing. And this experience might be the reason I get a Jeep in the future, honestly. Maybe two, maybe more than one, but I've changed my mind. You know, when they say it's a Jeep thing, well, I get it now. I get it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life finds a way.